Will Donald Trump's threat to sue Ted Cruz if he does not stop running those negative ads about Trump resonate at all with voters, or could even backfire on the billionaire businessman? Joining me now to discuss, Katie Packer. She was Mitt Romney's deputy campaign manager in 2012. Also with me, Democratic strategist Jamal Simmons. So, Katie and Jamal, you may have seen a little press conference, Donald Trump talking about Ted Cruz, and he went on a,
really? That's what
just a little bit, low volume. From a short time ago, liar, liar, etc. Let's play a clip from that, because I want you both to respond.
I've never seen anybody that lied as much as Ted Cruz. I think he's an unstable person. He just comes out and boom, 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 absolute lies. Now, he'll apologize, but I don't want an apology after the election. I want the apology before.
So this is, I mean, we heard some of this in the debate as well, Katie Packer, but, you know, this goes to issues, and as I was saying with Dana, as we were discussing, you know, Trump's positions have evolved, so to speak, on abortion rights, on gun issues, et cetera.
Virtually every Republican core issue.
Fair enough. So the question is this calling Ted Cruz a liar, kind of directing the fire at him, does that draw attention away, particularly in a state like South Carolina, where these are very, very important issues close to heart for voters?
Well, when I heard this, I thought, you know, this is the definition of irony. This guy, you know, calling somebody else a liar. I do think that as Dana mentioned, you know, he's very talented at sort of capturing the media spotlight, and he knows big things are happening, so he's trying to pull that away. But, you know, one thing Republicans aren't particularly keen on are people that are litigation happy. They don't like trial lawyers, and this is a guy that is talking about suing people left and right everywhere you turn. I don't think you can sue somebody for saying things that are factually correct.
Jamal, watching this admittedly from the other side, but the level, the vitriol's not new in this election, frankly, on either side, but particularly on the Republican side. But it took, you know, it went to 11, as they say, right? A little bit in the debate on Saturday. Then again, you have this event today, and of course, Trump has used his own words, you know, against a lot of these candidates, but not by himself. How much does this affect? How do voters react to this over time? Is there a limit? I mean, we talk about anger. There's a lot of anger from voters out there, but do they want to hear all this anger from their candidates?
Sure, and I think if I'm a Republican, I'm worried about Trump's press conference today, not just because he went after them, that's what candidates do, but he didn't really go after them in a conservative versus conservative manner. He went after them on an attack that I think resonates with people in the middle. Yeah. He said that the RNC is bought and paid for. They're under control of lobbyists. That's going to sting, and it's going to keep for a while. He said that I'm the only person here who can make America great again. None of the rest of them can. He went after them on their ability to do a good job as president. I think that he laid down some markers that Democratic ad makers are going to be able to use in the fall if Donald Trump is not the nominee, about him arguing why these other candidates should not be president.
So Katie, Trump brought up the birther issue again on Ted Cruz, and I've spoken to legal analysts, including our own Jeffrey Toobin, who said that actually as a candidate running against him for president, he has standing to take up a lawsuit potentially on this issue. Whether or not you win it, it becomes another distraction from the race. I mean, is this potentially a substantial attack on Ted Cruz over time that can kind of drag, weigh on him as the race continues?
Well, it has been weighing on him, and I do think it's something that, ultimately he's going to have to answer for one way or another.
But beyond the question, I'm talking about a lawsuit, if there was actually a lawsuit.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think he's got any real standing. The really interesting thing about this is these are two candidates who were sort of cozying up to each other just a couple of months ago, and now all of a sudden they're at each other's throats, and it's sort of an unbelievable turn of events.
Jamal, I wonder if I can ask you just about the Democratic side, because you have in South Carolina, the first state where you have a significant African-American population.
I just got back yesterday. I was down there for the weekend.
Well, tell me how they're feeling. I spoke earlier in the day with the head of the National Urban League and asked him this question, because there is a conventional wisdom that Hillary Clinton has such an enormous advantage among African Americans. Really, Bernie can't break into that. But he said, listen, no one owns the black vote. We're listening.
Well, I'll go further than that. Not just does no one own the black vote. I would say that what Bernie Sanders is doing today in South Carolina is outclassing Hillary Clinton on the ground by a level that I had no expectation to see. The Clinton campaign has a lot of ground to make up if they're going to hold on to the vote that they have. From Uber drivers to barbershop people to reporters I talk to, it's very hard to find a Hillary Clinton supporter randomly walking down the street. Now, if you're talking to people who are older, I met a 70-year-old guy. He said he wasn't particularly enthused, but Hillary Clinton was kind of his candidate. She's got to inspire candidates. Inspire voters, get them excited about voting for her, and she's got to get a ground game that's up to the caliber of the kind of campaign and presidency she wants to have.
That's an issue for young voters as well, and women too, to some extent. Jamal, Katie, great to have you on.